Nicholas Montez, and you're watching my YouTube channel, the Teenage Movie Critic. Welcome back to another YouTube channel for everybody. I'm so excited to have you all back here together again. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a tier list, and that is for the Disney live-action remakes. And this is all because of Peter Pan and Wendy coming out on Disney Plus. So I thought, why not go ahead and rank the Disney, do a tier list for the Disney remakes that are out so far. I'm gonna do something different when The Little Mermaid comes out. Which is I'm gonna try bracket fights, which you'll see how that's gonna go when the movie comes out. But for this time, for Peter Pan and Wendy, we're doing a tier list. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so now we are on the tier list. If you've seen my tier list before in the past, you probably know how most of these work. Basically, I have an A, B, C, D, F down to the worst here. And we're just gonna go ahead and get started. So the first remake here is The Jungle Book from 1994. I personally think it's a good movie, but it's kind of forgettable. It's a sort of hidden gem from Disney that they made. This is the first Jungle Book remake because we have another one that came out in 2016, but which we'll talk about later. But this first film, as it's the first Disney remake, I thought was pretty good. Granted, it takes a spin on the Jungle Book story where, you kind of grow up Mowgli and make him like Tarzan a little bit. The animal characters don't talk. It's more of just an actual realistic film where the human characters only talk. So I guess that's kind of fun. It is kind of cool to see some of these characters just real life animals. So I'm going to put it in the C tier. It's kind of forgettable, but it's also pretty good when you do watch it. I need to rewatch it though. And also, why isn't this film on Disney Plus? Like, they need to put it on Disney Plus. I think they did, but they just took it off. I don't know. Then we have 101 Dalmatians, the remake from the 1961 film. I thought this was actually a pretty good movie. Glenn Close is excellent as Cruella de Vil, and honestly, I would consider this to be a pretty good film. And even when it comes to certain scenes from the original film, I thought worked. I guess it's because it felt a lot more realistic than just feeling more cartoonish. So I'm going to put it in the B tier. Then we get to 102 Dalmatians, which I actually thought was one of the worst films from Disney remakes. And for that reason, you're actually going to go in the F tier for me. I'm sorry, but I just did not love this movie. It took this concept of this Dalmatian that had no spots, but also focused on Cruella de Vil, bringing her back, and also doing this story with her that no one cared about. And what's even crazy about this movie is that this movie, like the original 101 Dalmatians animated sequel, came out 3 years after this one. So it was kind of weird because normally when you're doing a sequel of a remake, normally there's a sequel already out there and it's a remake of that. But it's not. It's just a sequel to the original 101 Dalmatians from 1996. Then we have Alice in Wonderland. For me, I wasn't the biggest fan of the original Alice in Wonderland, like the original film from the 1950s. And even with this film, nothing really encapsulates I would say my favorite character was Johnny Depp as the Mad Hatter. And of course, the Red Queen, obviously one of the most awkward characters on screen. So, and I did like the war aspect of it. The special effects were pretty good, but overall, it's just not a film that I was into at all. So you're gonna go in the D tier. Then we got The Sorcerers Apprentice, which is a remake to a movie that I was not the biggest fan of, but it actually did work for me. It's basically a remake of a segment in the movie Fantasia. If you know the iconic Mickey Mouse sequence where Mickey Mouse is basically using the sorcerer's hat, it's basically from that. And there's not much that I can really say about it other than it's good. I like Nicolas Cage. I do like Jay Baruchel in this movie. The sorcerer action in it was pretty good. And the story itself is fine. But I like the realistic aspect of Jay Baruchel and him and trying to get with that girl. That was fun. So I'm going to put it in the C tier. I have to say The Jungle Book is better, mainly because it focuses on a much better story, but The Sorcerers Apprentice is still fun. Then we got Maleficent. Now, I know a lot of people don't like Maleficent, but honestly, I love Maleficent. I just love the way that, first off, they changed the story of Sleeping Beauty and not just doing shot-for-shot remake, but also they told the story of Sleeping Beauty in Maleficent's perspective. And that is the best thing when you're doing a remake. And now normally, with this certain character, you can't really do that because, she is Mistress, the Mistress of Evil. She's just evil. You don't need a backstory for it. But what if you did? I feel like it could be interesting. I want to explore her backstory, and I thought it was really great. And it all connected back even into the Sleeping Beauty story and within the story that they were telling. So, and then of course, to put it on top, Angelina Jolie as Maleficent was awesome. So, you're easily going to go in the A tier. I loved Maleficent. Then we get Cinderella. Mostly just copies what the original film did, but kind of makes you care about it a little bit more. There's a little bit of meat to it. Like, you add a little bit of the backstory of Cinderella's father and what her really name is, like her Ella and Cinderella. And the evil stepmother and evil stepsisters, you actually hate them a lot more in this film. The only problem I really have with it is that the mice don't play as big of a role in this movie. I like the little scene where he realizes he needs to open the window so she can sing and they can hear her. When he puts down the food and they open the window and so that she can sing and they can hear her. I like that scene. But I think besides that, the movie is also pretty good. It is pretty. So I'm going to put it in the B tier because I did care about it. And oh boy, we got The Jungle Book from 2016. Now, this is a film that I honestly absolutely loved. First off, it wasn't just a shot-for-shot remake. And I think what made this film so interesting for me was that it took the parts that you loved from the original film, but created this whole new story with it that felt realistic. As the only live-action thing in this film is Mowgli himself. Nothing of this movie besides Mowgli is real. Everything is photoreal. And that's the beauty of what makes this film so awesome. But even beyond that, like, they kept the stuff that you love from the original film, but mixed it in with this new, I don't know if you could say hybrid story, but it created something unique and different, where you create this whole society of animals, as all these animals kind of live in this kingdom, kind of like Lion King per se, and like they added a lot of unique stuff to the characters, and like they still kept the stuff of Bagheera narrating the story, and I love the way they actually like they gave certain characters and certain story, like they gave this movie an actual story, where of course the story is the same, where Mowgli is trying to get to the man village, but he meets a lot of stuff. He meets a lot of different animals along the way. But what makes this movie a lot stronger than the original film is that it's done with a bigger story. It's not just random stuff. No, you actually like the story that we're going on, and it makes sense in what's going on, and you care about it. But my three favorite things that they did differently in the movie was Shere Khan, the way they actually had a motive for him, where he wasn't just out for blood, killing this kid because he's a man cub. I don't like that in the jungle. No, they actually give him a backstory because his father literally burned his eye out. And then with King Louie, I love that he was just this big, gigantopithecus creature and if you're wondering why he was so huge, let me explain. So if you don't know, orangutans are not from India. They're not from India. And if you know, the original version, the original King Louie film, the original King Louie character from the Jungle Book is an orangutan in the original film. But the thing is, he wasn't in the original Jungle book, like the one that Kipling wrote. And so, but he still wanted to keep him in the movie, so as they were researching, they came across a species called Gigantopithecus. And basically, Gigantopithecus is a species that is now extinct, but it was this large primate that looked exactly like an orangutan. And they wanted to make this story as to, like, what if there was this one last Gigantopithecus living in the ruins of the Indian jungles, just hidden away, and no one has never known about it. And I honestly think that's kind of interesting. Like, it's a cool twist on things, and just the motion capture of Christopher Walken's face in this gigantic ape, this gigantic primate, is awesome. And I think the last thing I really loved was the way they did the elephants, where if you look in the original film, they really made them like this big bumbling herd in this sort of army per se. And in this film, they're like the protectors of the jungle. They're the creators of the jungle. They put out the fires. They created the trees, the birds in the tree. And so they made them really realistic. And then, of course, you also got to talk about the music and the special effects and all the characters. And I also like the way they included more of the wolves. Scarlett Johansson's Ka was great, though she was more used for exposition than just doing what Ka did in the original film, which I thought was awesome. Overall, the film is great, and you're easily going to go in the A tier. I loved The Jungle Book. Alright, now we have Alice Through the Looking Glass, and yeah, it was fine. It was, no, I'm not, it's worse than fine. It is terrible. I hated Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass. It was just a terrible film. Terrible. The only thing I really liked about it was that that time warping scene I thought was great. But everything else was just, it's terrible. The whole story was terrible. The whole backstory of the Red Queen and the White Queen, of why exactly did they, like, split apart, it's because one of them lied about eating Pop-Tarts. I'm like, that's such a dumb excuse for this type of film. I'm like, what are you doing here, Disney? But like I said, the time warping scene was cool. They introduced like this whole story of the Mad Hatter, and I do not like this film. It's bad. Like I said, the time warping scene is the only good thing about this film. Everything else is bad. Then we got Pete's Dragon. I liked this movie. The thing is, I liked, now this isn't a Disney animated film that's part of the Disney canon. This is actually one of the Disney films that's a remake of just a normal live action hybrid film with an animated dragon in it. That original film was kind of horrible, but this film is 10 times better. It is way better. Granted, it's not going to go super high, but it is still very good, so you're going to go in the B tier. I like Cinderella more, even though it copies the whole story. Pete's Dragon, I think, tells a much better story. You care about the characters more, and you still all like the things that are doing. Then we got Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast is an interesting film. I think the best thing that when it comes to the differences of the original film and this one is the relationship between Belle and her father. I thought that was probably the best thing to come out of this movie. As in, like, it felt a lot more realistic, where Belle's father was this inventor, and like the way they did that felt very realistic, and I thought that was really great. And of course, you get all the iconic characters and all the iconic songs, and they're all pretty great. They introduced this story of Belle's mom, which I don't really feel like you needed to do, and they explored this plotline of her getting the Black Plague, which I'm not really that interested in, though they didn't really invest into it all that much. And so I thought it was watchable. Like I said, the big standout here was the relationship between Belle and her father, but that's kind of the only thing that they really do differently here. I guess we could say there is some of that present day, and they do add a bit of a scene where Belle's teaching someone how to read, teaching some girls how to read. It's a cool little storyline that adds some stuff to Belle's character that makes her a little bit odder than everyone else, that she just reads while everyone is, getting girls and reading and cooking and all that stuff. So I think that it's sort of a good thing, a cool movie. You're still going to go and see just between The Sorcerer's Apprentice and The Jungle Book, just because I think it did some kind of cool things, but most of the time it's just watchable. It's just a watchable movie. Then we got Christopher Robin, the remake of all of the Disney Winnie the Pooh films. I thought it was actually a pretty good film. They took the Hook storyline and basically did a unique take on it, where you cast Ewan McGregor that played Lumiere and Beauty and the Beast, and basically cast him as Christopher Robin, and tell this story where, and I like how they include some of the themes of the Winnie the Pooh characters in the Winnie the Pooh stories into this story, and even when you get all the characters from the original Winnie the Pooh movies, it's awesome. Hearing Jim Cummings' voice as Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, and hearing Brad Garrett's Eeyore, it's awesome. And even seeing these characters in live action, even though they look like stuffed animals, that's how you're supposed to look. It's awesome. At the same time, though, they used the basic storyline of Christopher Robin coming back with Winnie the Pooh because of Heffalumps and Woozles coming and taking their friends away. That's kind of my issues with the Winnie the Pooh films. Well, I like the uniqueness of the world and the way that it's all done with the misspelled stuff of the houses of Pooh's housey. It's all done pretty well, but at the same time, it's like the whole Heffalumps and Woozles and using that as a storyline. I don't think it's as interesting as it sounds. At the same time, though, this film was still really good, and I'm actually gonna put it. I'm gonna put it in B tier. I liked it. I thought it was overall really good. And then we get Dumbo. Dumbo was a particularly fine film. Here's the interesting thing about it. I love the original Dumbo. I think the original film is probably one of the best Disney films they've ever made. Like, the story is just phenomenal. Even though it's like the original film is very short. That original film is just phenomenal. This film just kind of ruins that whole story. Where, there's kind of an interesting story where, you could do, but they don't really explore it as much. Of course, Dumbo is, of course, cute. I think the best thing when it comes to casting is Danny DeVito as the ringmaster. I thought that was great casting. He really fit that role perfectly. The CGI of the animals I thought was pretty good. And all the other human characters with Colin Farrell. And honestly, this was actually my introduction to Colin Farrell before I saw him as Penguin and Batman in the Batman. I will say this, and then also the kid actors were not exactly as great. They did not act well. They were just here for the paycheck. Now, while I did enjoy this movie, I will say this. I had a great experience with this movie because I actually saw this the day it came out when I was in Disney World. I actually went to the AMC Theater in Disney Springs and went to go see this with my sister. And it was a pretty good experience. It wasn't the best movie, but it was fine. So, I thought it was okay. Definitely forgettable. So we're going to go in D. I liked Alice in Wonderland a lot more. It's like I think about it, and it's a lot more Alice in Wonderland is a lot more interesting. Then we got Aladdin, and I actually have to say, I really like Aladdin. I think that this is a very solid Disney remake. Now, obviously, it's not close to being as good as the original film, but at the same time, it adds this sort of fun thing to the story that I thought was really endearing, and that, it kind of felt like the original film, but not being better. Not even close. Where you add, as soon as you enter the film, you just like it. You're just sucked into this world again, where you get to, you basically establish the story of, you establish the Arabian Nights song as you're establishing the whole world of the characters with Aladdin and Abu, Jasmine, the Sultan, and Jafar, and then you get the Cave of Wonders. But even all the action sequences, all of the songs, all the choreography in that, it's all fun. But even the characters between Jasmine and Aladdin themselves, they're fun too. And you actually do care about them a little bit more. And even the new character in Dahlia, I thought she was also very fun and a nice addition to the film. Sultan was also good. Jafar was kind of generic, but easily the best part of this film was, of course, Will Smith as the genie. He obviously is not better than Robin Williams, but he still found a unique take to do with this character that I thought, once he enters, you're easily sucked in and you easily feel okay. And I thought that was the best thing when it came to this film. So, honestly, the only flaw I really have is with Jafar. And it's obviously not as good as the original film. And also, the Cave of Wonders kind of sucked. And overall, I thought it was a nice little take on the original movie. So, I think it's gonna go... it's gonna go high B tier. I really liked this movie. It was overall very, very good. And I just really liked it. I just thought it was very, very good. And then we have The Lion King from 2019. So, obviously, this is... I know a lot of people hate this movie because it's just a shot-for-shot remake. And the lions don't emote as much. I can understand that. But there's obviously 3 great things about this film. Of course, the special effects are amazing. Of course, this is from the director of the Jungle Book from 2016. So, obviously, there's going to be a lot of great things from that. The score from Hans Zimmer, obviously amazing. Obviously, I like the way he updates it in certain styles. And then, of course, Timon and Pumbaa were awesome. To talk about certain scenes, you know, some of the songs, you know, I thought Just Killing a Way to Be King was really great, and it did a nice scene. Hakuna Matata was also fun. Be Prepared was kind of weak. Circle of Life was beautiful, but didn't really feel any emotion in that scene, really. I feel like certain scenes worked, but then also certain scenes kind of didn't work. I feel like what really helped most of these scenes was the score that made it a little bit more emotional, that actually made you care about it. And I did like how the way they did certain characters. Like, I liked the way they included the hyenas more, the way they included, they gave Sorabi and Nala a little bit more bigger roles. I was probably saying, and I also liked the way they did Zazu, as he had a lot more slapstick comedy in that. And so overall, it's a beautiful film. It's very nostalgic, but it's also like you like the original film way more. So while I think they do some pretty interesting stuff, at the same time, it's not as good as the original film. So for me, I'm gonna put this in the C tier, but it's gonna go at the high C tier because I think it does some really cool stuff. Then we got Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. What a wasted sequel. Just a wasted sequel. I did not really like this movie. It's like, it set up this story of like Maleficent getting mad because her daughter would not let her get married, and then they introduced all these other people that are like her. Just a weird plot line for a movie. I just didn't like it as much as everyone else, so... Granted, the action sequences were good. I did kind of enjoy it. I'm not going to say it's like bad or anything, but it's an overall solid movie. I'm going to put it there. I think it's more rewatchable than Dumbo was. Then we get Lady and the Tramp. Now, this was the first film I saw for Disney Plus Day when it first launched back in 2019. And I thought it was okay. Granted, you know, the CGI of the animals was fine. The characters themselves were okay. The acting was okay. The story, they added a little story of Tramp, which I didn't really find all that interesting. Overall, the movie is just fine. I don't want to really go back and rewatch it. I mean, I look back at certain scenes and I'm like, that's kind of funny, that's cool. Would I go back and rewatch it? No, I actually don't remember anything about this movie. But at the same time, I still do kind of remember certain things. So I'm still going to put it in the C tier because I do remember kind of liking it. Then we got Mulan. I thought this was actually a really good take on this story. It really did a great job. Of course, the action sequences are amazing. But I like the way they made the story of Mulan leaving her father, like, in a more realistic way. And making her kind of like this badass character from the start as we are introduced to her. And even in the side characters, where in the original film, the side characters are all vibrant and cartoonish and all that stuff. And in this film, they're a lot more serious, but at the same time, they're still charismatic, they're still comedic, but in a more realistic way, and I really like that. And even the villains, I thought were pretty generic. Jason Scott Lee as the villain of the film I thought was pretty good. And so overall, it did something that I liked. And overall, I want to put it in B tier. I don't know exactly where I would put it in B tier. I'm gonna put it in B. I think the acting was pretty good. Not the best, but good. And then we got Cruella. Now, this was a film that I had no idea what to expect. I was expecting, oh, this is gonna be another foolish Disney remake. I had no idea what to expect. Like, you're doing a remake of 101 Dalmatians again, and then you're doing a film with Cruella. Like, okay, yeah, Emma Stone, okay, it's a origin film, okay, but you're gonna cast her? Like, you could literally cast anyone else, but why her? And it just felt kind of weird for me. But then you watch the movie, and Emma Stone is literally the best thing when it comes to this movie. And even the side characters and the whole story and the soundtrack, it just all works. Granted, I haven't seen this movie since I first saw it back when it came out on Disney Plus, for like on my mom's birthday. But at the same time, it's still a really, really good movie. And I do remember certain plot problems with the whole twist of her being her mother problem. I did like the tease of the way it teases 101 Dalmatians. That was cool. So I'm actually gonna put this in B. I really enjoyed Cruella, and I enjoyed it more than Aladdin because it just did something different and unique. And then we have Pinocchio. Definitely not as good as the original film. I remember watching this movie and I was like, okay, that was pretty good. It actually had some interesting ideas. But when you watch the Pinocchio film that came out on Netflix in December, that was directed by Guillermo del Toro, won best animated feature at the Oscars this year, you start to realize there's a lot of things in this film that was actually explored in that animated film, and was never explored in here, and it did it a whole lot better. This film I still think was funny. You got Tom Hanks in it. Pinocchio himself was still kind of fun. So overall, I do kind of still enjoy it. The scene where, they get the clocks and all these Disney characters come out, that was a fun little scene. But I overall think it's a decent movie. So overall, I think it's gonna go in C tier, but it's gonna go right here. And then now we finally have Peter Pan and Wendy, and if you saw my review for it, you know that I thought it was a decent remake. It's not bad, it's not great, but it's good. Of course, the film feels very low for a budget. I thought the characters were nice. I thought the whole backstory of Peter Pan and Wendy was nice. And overall, it was just a nice little film that I thought was enjoyable. So overall, I enjoyed Peter Pan and Wendy. If you want to consider my full review, my review is on my channel now. So that's my review for Peter Pan and Wendy, and you're going to go in C tier. It's more memorable than Lady and the Tramp, but that's all I can really say about it. And that is my ranking that is my tier list for the Disney live action movies, remakes. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. All my social media stuff is in the about section over there. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.